Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the ROKER RAPPORT podcast in association with the Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen. It's Gav back today to chat about Sunderland's game against our old foes Wigan Athletic in the Championship this weekend. We managed to win, thank God, just about. And join me today to chat all about the game. First of all, Phil West. Hi mate.
Hi Gav.
And also with us is Martin Wanless for the first time in a few weeks. Hi Martin.
Hello mate.
How's everybody today? Are we feeling refreshed? Are you both
relieved?
Up a height?
Relieved,
yes,
more than
relieved.
refreshed.
Yeah, very, very relieved. Yeah,
big 3 points, I think, wasn't
The relief is the overarching feeling, isn't it? That we managed to just get the job done against Wigan. We'll dive straight into the game. Martin, were you? I mean, what were you expecting when it came to this fixture? Were you, because I think we all understood the magnitude of it, right? I mean, it hasn't actually been talked a lot about after the game, but had we not won this game, the mood would have been very, very different, wouldn't it? We haven't won in a few. You know, Charlie Wyke getting on the score sheet. Imagine if that stayed 1-0. I mean, we will come to the goals and stuff, but how were you feeling about this game generally coming into it?
I was nervous, I have to say. You watched the game last week against Swansea, and that first half was probably the worst 45 minutes we played all season. You put that. Yes, we had a good second half against Swansea, didn't we? But we obviously had a defeat. We'd not scored any goals in the last 2 games at the Stadium of Light. Drawn 0-0 against Blackpool, drawn 0-0 against Preston. Hadn't really looked like scoring that much. No, we had a few half decent efforts, but goals looked like they were going to be hard to come by. And I was thinking about this game. You know, Wigan have got a bloody good away record. I think they had the best away record in the Football League before yesterday. You got the striker problems that we've got, and we're trying to figure out a solution to scoring goals. You've got all of those ex-Sunderland forwards coming back to the Stadium of Light, and you kind of think this is only going to go one way.
Yeah,
I'd predicted 0-0 before the game. I thought I just can't see us scoring, and even at half time yesterday, I was like, I just can't see where we're going to get a goal from. But hey, look, we managed to pull it round, and you know, as bad as the first half was against Swansea, I thought the second half yesterday was, you know, getting close to, if not our best sort of performance of the season, because I thought we were fantastic.
Yeah. What were your overall feelings on everything, Phil, just sort of before the game, during the game, after the game, in terms of how things ebbed and flowed?
Well, it wasn't season defining for me. You know, I know that a lot of people were saying that, you know, it was a crunch fixture and, you know, we were looking over our shoulders if the game hadn't gone our way, etc., etc. But I wouldn't say it was season defining, but the importance of the game yesterday for me was just to kind of ease any tension that was building, calm any nerves after the kind of the rocky patch that we've hit in terms of form. You know, we hadn't scored in the last 2 home games against, you know, Blackpool and Preston. So I think it was important in terms of just managing to get everybody calmed down, get things back on track again. And, you know, obviously there was, as Martin said there was the kind of the subplot there of the reunion with the ex-Sunderland players, you know, McLean, and he's always going to be the boo boy, and you had Wyke who left us, etc., etc. But I have to say, I was confident that we would get the job done. You know, I was confident that the players would respond. The first half, which I'm sure we'll touch on in a while, the first half was, I think Wigan tried to kind of drag us into a bit of a League One style war of attrition, really. You know, it was very stodgy. There was a lot of time wasting. They were trying to spoil the game with, you know, slowing down tactics, etc., etc. And obviously when Wyke scored, you're thinking, oh, here we go. We've seen this movie again. You know, the ex-Sunderland player comes back and scores against us. As Martin said, I thought the second half, they came out, you know, and we absolutely battered them in the second half. You know, it was a fantastic performance. And yeah, it was important to get the win, just to get everybody calmed down, you know, ease any tension. And, you know, the nature of the table, Gav, is such that it's so congested in that kind of mid-area of the table. One win can propel you right back into the kind of upper echelons of the table. And I was looking at it last night. We're only 5 points off the summit of the table, which is incredible. You know, you think about what we've gone through recently. Only 5 points off the top at this stage is fantastic. So, yeah, it was a big win, without a doubt.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, you know, going into the game, the narratives were already written. You know, Charlie Wyke's playing, Max Power's playing, Nathan Broadhead's playing. It could have went sour, and thankfully it didn't. I mean, to be fair to Tony Mowbray and Martin, he picked a team, didn't he, that was pretty ambitious. Like, I was expecting to see maybe Matete come in, but he went with players that he's trusted a lot in recent weeks. Dan Neil and Elliot Embleton in particular. People would have dropped those. I was probably in favour of Embleton coming out. Had his best game in a long time. Dan Neil was excellent. Had his best game in a long time. He's one thing with Mowbray, he gives players second chances, doesn't he? He won't just drop somebody after a little poor run of form. There's obviously a word in the ear, and then he's waiting for a reaction. That's his style of management. But it was a brave team selection, wasn't it? Because he could have picked a totally different side, really.
It was very brave. And look, Corey Evans would have started if he'd been available. So you take him out of the side, you're not only losing the type of player he is in terms of that holding midfielder who gets stuck in, you're also losing your captain and a very influential player on the field for the team. So to not actually directly replace him, I thought Matete is guaranteed to come in. And if it wasn't Matete, it would be Barr. I thought one of those two definitely.
He wasn't even on the bench.
He wasn't even on the bench, was he? So I thought one of those two definitely guaranteed to come in and play alongside Dan Neil. I think Elliot Embleton's been really off form in the past few weeks. Now we've had him off the starting 11 straight away for the game yesterday, and obviously it's a good job I'm not picking the team because he, as you say, he has his best game, and he was playing a bit of a deeper role, wasn't he? He was kind of dropping in alongside Dan Neil, and he was getting on the ball, and he was really dictating play for a lot of the good spells of possession that we had.
Just to butt in on that, the Swansea game last week, we talked about this a little bit, in that, that's the type of game where them players don't thrive. This game, where we know what Max Power's about, that's the game where like a Neil and Embleton, when they get on the ball, it can be dangerous, can't they?
No, they can. All right, I think Embleton was lucky to be still on the pitch after 20 odd minutes, wasn't he? I thought it was a red card was certainly coming. I think Tony Mowbray thought so as well, because he was stood there with his hands on his head as soon as that tackle flew in.
He does that for everything, though. That's the only thing. I pointed this out to me mate at the match. I says, watch Mowbray whenever we do anything.
It's a default stance, isn't it?
Everything's devastating. He caught me out the other week. I can't remember who we played now, but Roberts got tackled on the byline right in front of him.
Yeah.
And Mowbray puts his head in his hands and goes to his knees on the floor as if he's just seen a leg break. And honestly, I thought, Jesus, this must be bad. And it wasn't. It was just his sort of default stance.
No, it was an interesting team selection. Obviously, we went back to a back three rather than the back four that we've been playing for the last few weeks. Cirkin came back into the side. Obviously, he pushed Elise up as a wing back, didn't he? I don't think it really worked.
He does love to get forward, doesn't he? But it's just he hasn't really got.
I think he looked class at centre half.
To be fair, I think he's been one of our best players in recent weeks. He's been absolutely fantastic.
And I thought it was really interesting to see that change at half time with Gucci's injury. We went more to a back four, didn't we?
Yeah, it's interesting though, because I'd said before the game, go to a back three, because I don't think a back four's worked in the last few weeks.
It's funny,
and I was in favour of Elise coming in at left wing back, but yeah, I mean it was worth trying, because we've seen in the last few weeks where Elise, he has looked good going forward, so he's probably looked at it and thought, well, before Cirkin's injury, he was very good as a left centre half, so it's difficult to try and work out really what to do. But I think he got it right. It's just the problem was it didn't work.
Well, he didn't. We predict or try to predict the team before the game every week on the website, and I thought he'd go to a back three or a back five, because he'd made the comment during the week that opposition managers, after we've played them, have been saying to him, "Oh, look, we've just been focused on stopping your wingers, because you've got the danger down the flanks." So that, combined with Wigan playing three at the back, I thought would match them up, and we'd try to play a little bit more centrally in the attacking third, which we kind of did to some extent. Although Roberts was very, very wide, Clark was pretty anonymous in the first half, wasn't he? But it wasn't a surprise. I didn't think it was the wrong team selection. I just don't think it worked as well as it could have done in the first half.
No, but then like Martin says, Phil, we worked things out in the second half and stuff. But I actually thought first half we'll work through the action here. But I thought first half we played all right. Yeah, the second half was a lot better. But I mean, take Wyke's goal out of consideration when they done nothing to that point. I actually thought Sunderland were all right first half.
Yeah.
I thought we started really well. Thought the tempo was good. First 15 minutes were excellent. And then around about the 15-minute mark, Wigan started doing exactly what we thought they'd do. They started wasting time, slowing down, pretending they were injured, taking the time on every throw-in, every goal kick. We've come to expect this in the last few years at the Stadium of Light. It's the default tactic of nearly every team, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I thought we were all right in that first sort of half an hour, especially. I don't really think at any point I felt Wigan were going to get something. And then the goal came out of nowhere, obviously. But in terms of Sunderland's performance, I don't know what you think, but I was pretty happy with it actually going into the break.
Yeah, I mean, as I said earlier, it was. I think our performance was kind of, I wouldn't say it was kind of made to look different by the way Wigan played, but I just felt that they were, that Wigan, as you said, they were definitely coming there with a game plan to try and kind of stifle us from playing what is our natural game, which is moving the ball quickly and knocking it about. But yeah, in retrospect, I think, despite the fact that it was, I didn't particularly enjoy the first half, I do think Sunderland actually, they played quite well. I mean, we were speaking on Friday night, on the Friday Night Live on Twitter Spaces, weren't we, about how we would approach the game in terms of tactics and, how we were going to try and play. Should we be a bit more direct or should we try and play our natural game? In the first half, we stuck to our guns. We stuck to our natural way of playing. I thought Roberts, by the way, was absolutely fantastic all afternoon. He was unplayable at times. I thought he looked up for it. He was a player who really kind of grasped that name by the scruff of the neck and said, look, we can win this thing. We've just got to do what we do best. So, yeah, as you said, Gav, I thought Wigan were absolutely dreadful, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. They offered absolutely nothing. They were slowing the game down. But the thing is that, we found out during the League One years that you've got to be patient in those situations. And again, we stressed that on Friday night, didn't we? Patience, discipline, not trying to force it, just working the ball, trying to create openings, etc., etc. But obviously, when Wyke scores towards the end of the first half, you're thinking, because it was a real sucker punch at that point. You don't want to concede at that stage of the game just before half time, and it was a kind of the sense of, here we go again type of thing. It's another repeat of a scenario that we've seen before. But yeah, I thought the first half it was something we've seen quite regularly. Loads of attacking intent, but we just didn't have that final product. So yeah, I think to be fair, I think that looking back on it, it was a pretty decent first half from us, without a doubt.
I didn't think Wigan were that bad. Like, they played awful football, but they were really well structured and well drilled. And they've got the three up front, and the rest of the team was just pretty much set up to contain us and see if the three up front could do something, weren't they? So I actually think I understand what you're saying in terms of Wigan being crap to watch. But in terms of a football team set up to get a result away from home,
it's effective.
Very effective.
Yeah, so Phil Patrick Roberts, he was brilliant, as we said. It was great to see him take on McLean, because McLean's a good player at this level. He has been a decent player his whole career, really. But Roberts, he was outstanding all day, wasn't he? I think every time he got the ball, he just knew what to do, which was to try and get down that right-hand side of McLean and run at him. They've obviously seen that's a weak point for him. But Roberts just, even when he was surrounded, because they were trying to double up on him, sometimes they were tripling up on him. And Roberts just came away with the ball every time, looked very dangerous. The only thing that was really missing from his game was the finish at the end of it, which was pretty much the story of the first half, wasn't it? I think we had a number of opportunities that he was involved in where we just couldn't stick the ball away. But that was Roberts at his best, wasn't it?
Oh, without a doubt. And I think that, he showed yesterday that kind of big game mentality that he has. I think he really brought that yesterday, and he really, really did. As I said earlier, he really grasped the game. And it was as if he said to his teammates, look, lads, we know we're a better football inside than them. We've just got to be patient. We do what we do, and eventually we'll get our rewards. So, yeah, what Roberts has, he's got kind of Alex Pritchard's ability to get himself out of trouble. Even in confined spaces, he'll shuffle the ball, he'll create space where there isn't any, and he'll just turn it on and he'll get away from his marker. So yeah, I thought he was fantastic, and I was sitting on his side of the pitch in the first half when he was going down the wing, and every time he got the ball, as you said, he had McLean really, really worried, and that's what Roberts can bring. He looks to be getting more consistent now. I think under Mowbray he really is starting to thrive, and I think I said a few weeks ago that I think Mowbray really trusts their players like Patrick Roberts. And I think you're seeing that in his performances. I think he's rewarding his boss's faith. He's really influential. He's bringing leadership as well through his on pitch, what he's doing on the field as well. So yeah, he was fantastic yesterday, Gav. Such a key player for us.
He wasn't the only one though, Martin, was he, in the first half who played decent? Like, we tried to keep the ball in there. I'm not saying that we were outstanding. Second half we were outstanding, but I thought first half you could see us trying to get back to more like the way we like to play. And Mowbray, after that last week's game, I didn't agree with him actually when he said, he was debating on how to play against Swansea, and he felt as though that the way to do it was to just play the way we normally play. I thought that was probably the wrong time to try and do that. But in this game, it was very much more of the same. In that case, it was like, well, I'm going to play me ball players. I'm going to try and keep the ball in the deck. Pritchard had his best game for a long time. Embleton, like we said earlier, had his best game for a long time. Neil playing in that role where you would normally have Corey Evans, did all right, did very well, kept the ball moving. Even passing out from the back, we looked a little bit better. With Cirkin coming into the team, we were a little bit more solid. It was just a all-round better half of football, wasn't it, from us than we've had in the last couple of weeks.
I think we played well, and there was a confidence about the team, which was quite impressive, given that we're coming off the back of a defeat away at Swansea and a couple of games at home where we haven't scored. And I think the team played well in the first half. I think the left flank was the area of the pitch that didn't click in the first half. Roberts did a hell of a lot of good work down the right hand side, and as you see, Embleton and Neil Pritchard sort of linked up well with him and created space to let him attack. It was one of those games, though, wasn't it? Like we played really, really well up until we got to the sort of 25 yards out from goal, and Roberts had a few shots that went wide. Clark had a shot that went wide, and I was just if we'd had any of the three Wigan forwards up front for us, we'd have been 2-0 up at half time, because we were just missing that play to stretch the game a bit when it needs stretching, to hold the ball up when we need to hold up, to press the last line of defence. Mind, I think Roberts scored a goal which, I've seen a few replays. Yeah, I can't tell if it's offside or onside, or how the hell the linesman did.
When I was at the game, I didn't think it was off. And we'll come on to the referee, I think, in a bit, and the officials, but it was a poor decision. Yeah, and we did try, though. We did try to break the lines. It was we did. What we probably didn't do enough of, Martin, is like too much. The only way to say it is that we're fanning on too much, like around the box. Just too many touches inside the box, not getting it in there early enough. I mean, the second half, we done the opposite and we got goals. The first half, it was a bit too much going on.
There's a couple of aspects to it, isn't there? So there's one, I think Chris mentioned on the pod a week or two ago, about Ross Stewart's absence. Just misses that stretch where he'll get on the last man and give us 10 yards to play in or behind him, and that creates a little bit of space. So everything that we were doing yesterday was very compact in their sort of final third, and the players aren't naturally, the attacking players aren't naturally making the runs that a striker would make into space to either take a defender away or to create a chance for themselves. So they're having to look for that extra pass to try to play a 1-2 to get themselves in. And I think that's where we're missing that proper centre forward who can do that sort of job, because we're playing really well up until we get to 20 yards out, 25 yards out. But we kind of get up there as a group. Whereas, a lot of the goals that we've scored, second half of last season and this season before Stewart's injury, the game has been a bit more stretched. So I think that's where we're kind of missing out. And that's why we're getting those situations where we're probably overplaying, because we have to try to create that yard of space to get a shot in.
Yeah, there was a handful of times, especially in the first half, where we just, like I say, we had too many touches in the box. And I remember turning to my mate at one, but I think it might have been after Clark or Roberts had a slight opportunity. I was like, if that's Ross Stewart, he doesn't take 4 touches, he takes 1.
Well, that's
and it's a shot.
There was a ball, a free kick that Pritchard put in the first half. Absolutely beautiful ball, went in between the goalkeeper and the line of the Wigan defence. Yeah. And if somebody had been gambling there, they had a tap in. But we were all a little bit flat-footed. We didn't gamble on it. And we had a few situations like that in the second half where, again, we're not kind of anticipating the ball coming in, which, it's not the likes of Jack Clark or Pritchard or Robert's natural game to anticipate those, is it? But that's where we're really missing that goal-scoring instinct.
Yeah, but like you say, Phil, we were trying to carve them open, and then Martin rightly says we were just missing that presence around the box. But it's, I guess at this stage now, the players have had enough time, sort of ignore the second half a little bit, but they've had enough time between the period when Sims got injured at Reading and now to work out, right, we have to do this, we have to stop taking so many touches when we do get, I know it's an instinct thing, but these are all still good footballers, and I don't know how Mowbray really coaches that out of them. It's difficult, isn't it, to really, I think we saw in the second half the way we should probably go when it comes to trying to score goals while we don't have a striker.
Yeah.
But in that first half, we saw the other side of it, which was just too much. We're not the football wasn't simplistic enough when we were getting around the box. When we just needed somebody to put their foot through it and take one touch out their feet and shoot. Yeah. It wasn't happening. And I mean, it's difficult for Mowbray, isn't it? How do you really coach that out of players who aren't used to it? It's tough, isn't it?
It is. It's very tricky, Gavin. The thing is, we all rave about Ross Stewart's all-around ability, but one thing he is so good at is he's such an economical striker, as you said. One touch, two touch, bang, and invariably, 8 times out of 10, it's in the back of the net, and we are missing that at the minute. But as you rightly said, that we've been without Stewart now for enough time, and without Sims as well, for the players to kind of have to realise that we've got to grasp the net on here. Ross is out, Ellis is out. We've got to kind of find it within ourselves to make up for what they're not bringing at the moment. So it is tricky, and in the first half particularly, there was all the interplay was good. It was we were really moving the ball quite well, but again, there's a time to do that, and there's a time to just get it in there. And as Martin said, someone needs to be gambling, which obviously the goals was kind of a result of that, which we'll come on to. In the first half, I think they were a bit reluctant to do so, and as you said, Gav, it is an instinct thing. Being a natural finisher, in my opinion, is something you've got or you haven't. I'm not too sure whether you can really coach that into somebody. I think there's a difference between having an eye for a goal and having an instinct for the goal. Jack Clark's got an eye for a goal. Is he an instinctive finisher? Probably not. So there is a bit of a difference there. But again, we just got to deal with it. And in the second half, we did. So again, patience, I think, was the watchword yesterday. And to be fair, it did pay off for them in the end.
It's an interesting thing, isn't it, when you look at how we've done without Stewart and Sims, because Mowbray has talked about us needing to find different ways of scoring, and the players having to take responsibility to get shots away and take responsibility to get in the box and all that sort of stuff. But if you have a look at the last 4 games, right, home to Preston, we had 2 shots on target. Home to Blackpool, we had 4 shots on target. Away at Swansea, we had 2 shots on target. And yesterday against Wigan, we had 3 shots on target. So it's not as if we're peppering the goal from here, there and everywhere. We're trying to work, it seems to me, we're trying to work that perfect chance at tap-in. And both the goals that we scored yesterday were, 6-7 yards out, tops. So we're trying to work in those situations where we're not taking the risk. And I think, it doesn't look like Stewart's going to be back anytime soon, certainly not until the World Cup. So I'd really like to see us over the next few weeks. I think we've got 6 games before the break for the World Cup. And there's 6 games there which we should be could get a decent haul of points. And I think if we start taking a few more chances, rather than, as Gav said, overplaying it and trying to look for that extra pass, somebody's just got to take responsibility and get a few shots in.
Yeah.
And we've got to test the keeper, we've got to follow up. I know it's basic stuff, but we're not doing that aspect of the attacking at the minute.
I mean, I'm convinced that Tony Mowbray has probably said to the players, look, lads, you're going to have to share the goal scorer responsibilities around you. And he's probably looking at his defenders saying, look, lads, I need you to chip in with a couple. He's probably looking at the likes of Elliot Embleton and Dan Neil saying, look, lads, if you can get on the score sheet a couple of times, that's going to be a big help. So I think collective responsibility is something that the players are really going to have to embrace, Martin. As you said, with Stewart out until the foreseeable future, Sims is on the comeback trail, which is good. That'll give us something when he comes back. But the players have to step up now, and to be fair, that's what they did in the second half. So we do need to see more of that, over the next couple of weeks, without a doubt.
We'll come on to the goals in a bit, I guess, because what we saw, especially with the Embleton goal, was more of what I want to see. But before the half played out, the inevitable happened. Wigan, who'd never done anything really in the first half. I mean, to me, they came for a point, really, and if they were going to score a goal, it was going to be a goal exactly like that, just against the run of play. I've watched it back a few times. I mean, it's a good goal. I'm just wondering what we could have done better to prevent that happening. I think O'Nien, maybe, he steps out a bit rash, doesn't he, and comes to the ball. Broadhead, quick feet, nips it away, and the goal sort of results from that. But there's a lot more went into it. Is there anything we could have really done about that, do you think?
I think, as you said, Gav, O'Nien just maybe holding it a little bit more and not kind of getting drawn out there as quickly. I think that's the Achilles heel of O'Nien's game. And we saw at the Middlesbrough game, if you remember the goal that they scored, that was a result of O'Nien just being caught positionally out of position a little bit. And it was the same yesterday. So probably not a great deal more we could have done. I just like to see O'Nien in that situation just kind of hold his ground a little bit more. But I mean, it was a good finish. That Wyke took that he finished it really, really well. But it was just one of those classic goals where you think, just a moment of slackness, and then bang, you're 1-0 down. So just one of those unfortunate moments, really. I felt
it was inevitable Wyke would score, wasn't it, Martin? Or at least one of them. I'm kicking myself for not putting money on it because you just knew. It's all everybody was talking about before the game in the pub, in the sort of the stand before kick-off. Oh God, one of them's going to score, aren't they? And it was inevitable. I mean, I think it was Broadhead passed it to McLean, who crossed it in. Yeah. It sort of deflected to Wyke, and it was great. So all three of them had a part in it.
It was just missing a Max Power towel, wasn't it? To get the
he wasn't. He's always the first one on the scene when there's a celebration to be had, though, isn't it?
I tell you what, though,
I noticed on the photos looking back, he was the first one on the scene.
He likes being on the camera, yeah. But that finish by Wyke was a cracking finish. I didn't think he had that
really
in him.
Good.
Like the amount of shots he scuffed.
Left foot as well.
It was a really top class finish, and like. You know, the amount of times that we've all seen Charlie Wyke play, the ball at his feet finishing isn't actually his strong point. You know, he is an instinctive. Well, he is an instinctive finisher, isn't he? If he has to think about it, he more often than not cocks it up, like we saw in the playoff semi-final. But it was a lovely finish. Like, all credit to him, he stuck it away well. And look, in all seriousness, it's nice to see him. Great to see him playing after everything he's been through, isn't it? Because he's obviously very. I had a hell of a lot of problems over the past year or so. So all credit to see him on the field, and I think he got a nice round of applause, didn't he, when he got taken off?
Well, he did, but there was also boos in there as well. It wasn't just that, to be fair. There was a bunch of things, really. I don't get why you would boo him off, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I sort of understand giving him a bit of stick while the game's on. Fair stick, right? Nothing too unsavoury because he's playing against you. But once he's walking off the pitch, you know, I think you've got to. I applaud him off the pitch. I thought, like, you know, fair play, like, because he could have retired, couldn't he? He could have went. I don't want any more of this, you know. And he's worked really hard to get himself back in a position where he's even playing football and to be scoring in the Championship.
But even when you look at his career with us, you can argue all you want about how good he was or not, but he gave everything when he played. He couldn't. He was never a player you could accuse of not giving everything for the club and putting everything into a performance. So, like, there's one thing to have a difference of opinion about his ability, but I think if you had a player who's, you know, played the heart out for the club, then give him a clap.
I mean, there was a perception, wasn't there, that Wyke did the dirty on us when he left for Wigan, which was just absolute nonsense. You know, Wyke did everything he could for us during that 2021 season. Take Wyke's goals out of the equation, his 31 goals out of the equation. Where do we finish in Lee Johnson's first season in charge? You dread to think about it. So, no, I thought the reception he got when he walked off, I thought the applause was fully deserved. And certainly where I was sitting, everybody was really appreciative of him. So that was good to see.
Yeah, I think at the end of the stadium where I sit, there is a bit of a nugget element, unfortunately. Like, it wasn't just that, there was other stuff. People around me were booing them off at half-time. We went 1-0 down on the stroke at half-time. And then there's people like, boo, top of their voice, something. You can see, though, when you're, not just me, but people around, like, looking around as if to say, how are you? What are you booing them for? You know what I mean? But I guess when there's 37,000 people there, you're going to have the odd idiot, aren't you? It's just the par for the course. Second half, though, we came out after the break. Lyndon Gooch, he obviously got injured in the first half. I thought he was going to go off at one point. Bailey Wright was all stripped off, ready to come on, wasn't he? And then was told to sit back down. But it's interesting how sort of Mowbray's mindset changed from that point, because he was prepared to bring a defender on at that point. I guess to move O'Nien out to the right. Having gone 1-0 down just on the stroke at half-time, he came back at half-time and he went more offensive. He brought on Ahmad, who I actually think played well, Phil. I think if there was certain moments in attack where we've seen this a few times from Ahmad, where he's indecisive, a bit like what some of the lads were doing in the first half, just not adjusting his feet correctly, not being clinical. But I think defensively he was brilliant. Like the tracking back and which is actually what you want to see from him. We all know he's got talent, or he wouldn't have cost Man United so much money. He's obviously got talent, but it's a case of when the chips are down and you haven't got the ball, can this player dig in, and is he prepared to graft for his team? And I actually thought Ahmad done pretty well all round. I thought I saw a bit more from him in this half of football than we've probably seen to date, and that was, would you say, his best performance so far for Sunderland?
I would say so, yeah. I thought he was excellent. The thing about him, and I really do like Ahmad. Let's get this straight. I'm a huge fan of his, and I think he will become a very, very good player for us. What interests me about him, though, is that he is he looks so hesitant in front of goal at times. And you just wonder, is that a confidence issue? Because I think if he could develop a little bit more of a ruthless streak, if Tony Mowbray can coach him, again, we keep talking about this, don't we? This kind of instinctiveness that strikers need to have. I think Ahmad could become a really good potent goal scorer for us, but he just seems to lack confidence in those key moments for some reason.
Do you know the problem is though, Phil? I think is that you can't. Like Mowbray keeps talking about this. He's very keen to point this out whenever he talks after games, and he done it again yesterday. He's talking about how we've got all these young lads, and I want to introduce them, but I don't want to just throw them in and it be at the cost of a result. I want to bring them in. I want to be winning games and supplementing that by giving these lads game time. And I think that's sort of, on varying degrees, different players. That's the problem we've got here. Is Ahmad, he needs a run of games. They all do. Yeah. But he's a forward, and for him to be scoring goals and contributing assists and all the rest of it, that's going to come when he gets more minutes and more time on the pitch. And like getting a half and then 20 minutes here and 10 minutes there, you can't get in any rhythm. Like we saw that with Clark when he first came in to Sunderland. He wasn't starting games necessarily at the start, and he was struggling to make an impact. And the same with Roberts, actually. I mean, you think back to last season, Roberts only really came into the starting 11 towards the end of the season, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then we've seen this season again, Roberts just coming off the bench under Alex Neil. He was struggling to make an impact. Like these types of players, they need to be on the pitch. And unfortunately, we can only pick 11 players. It's like, what do you do?
I mean, I think another player I would put in that bracket is Edouard Michou as well. Now, he came on for his debut against Blackpool. At a time when the game was really getting stretched and the crowd was starting to get a bit, edgy. It was towards the end of the game. It was a rough and tumble game. I think Michou, for example, is the kind of player who you want to bring on ideally if you've got control of the game, everything's going your way, the space is there, you can control it, etc., etc. But just getting back to Ahmad, I think the attitude he showed yesterday and the willingness to really, really do a job for the team was absolutely exemplary. As you said, his tracking back was absolutely fantastic. He really, really came on there, and he was another one who came on, and it was as if he said, right, okay, I'm going to do my absolute utmost here to make sure that we secure this result. And I thought his attitude was exemplary. And if he can align that with a little bit more, ruthlessness in front of goal, I think we could have a very good player in our hands. So yeah, definitely his best performance in the Sunderland shirt, in my opinion, yesterday.
And then we came, like I say, Martin came out second half, and I think we took the good elements from the first half and then kicked on a little bit. I don't think Mowbray will have necessarily given them a rocket at half time. I think he'll have just said to them, you're doing things right here, but when we get round that box, you've got to be more clinical. You've got to get the balls in behind. I think what was really interesting was we changed system, didn't we? We went to a back four, but we started seeing the full-backs coming in at the back post to give us something a bit different. Obviously, we got that goal from Cirkin later in the half, which we'll come on to. O'Nien was arriving at the other side. Like that, it added a lot to the game, actually, because we weren't overplaying around the box anymore. We were sort of getting 30 yards, 25 yards, 30 yards out from goal and trying to work the ball into dangerous areas, which is what we didn't do in the first half. So we supplemented that with the good play that we sort of seen in the first half, and it all meshed well, didn't it? And we got the goal fairly early through Elliot Embleton, which was a good move.
It was, and I think if you look at the first half, the play went primarily down our right-hand side, and Roberts was cutting in onto his left foot pretty much every time that we got into that position in that final third on the right-hand side. So in the second half, as you say, we saw a big change in tactic in terms of the two full-backs, Cirkin and O'Nien. I think O'Nien could well find himself playing right back for the next few weeks. I think he's probably going to slot in there if certainly if Gooch is absent. But both of them were overlapping, getting to the byline, getting crosses in. And the first goal came from Cirkin providing the width and getting the ball in the box to Embleton.
Yeah. And it was nice to see. It was just good to see us play some decent football. It was a nice move, wasn't it, Phil? A couple of short passes around the full-back. It's like a very rudimentary training ground goal, actually. It's the type of goal we scored quite a lot under Lee Johnson. Ironically, with Nathan Broadhead up front, it's sort of the kind of goal we would score back then. But yeah, it was a nice goal, wasn't it? And it was good to see Embleton get his first goal of the season. I think when you look at his position, his starting position when he scored the goal, he was obviously nobody picked him up. But it was very much a striker's goal, that was sort of hanging back, just waiting around the penalty spot for the ball to arrive. And again, it's something we haven't done enough recently, but maybe this is a corner turned.
Yeah, hopefully, because again, as we were saying earlier on, it's important for players to take that gamble, to get into that position, on the off chance that the ball is going to be played into you there, and you are going to get the chance to get something on it, whether it's a head or a foot or whatever. And Embleton did that, and I think there was more purpose about us in the second half. As you said, Gav, what we did in the second half was, we combined all the good intricate play from the first half with a bit more urgency to get the ball into those good positions, a fraction or two earlier and stretch them a little bit. And that's what we did. And obviously that was what led to Embleton's goal. Great to see him on the score sheet. I thought he played really well, as you said. He was really influential yesterday. I thought it was a much needed performance from him. And yeah, it gave us that foothold. But I have to say, at the risk of sounding overconfident here, as soon as we scored that first goal, I knew we were going to go on and win the game. I just knew it because you could sense that things were changing in the stadium. Everybody's heads were up. Confidence was high again. And again, we just needed to be patient. So it was a crucial time to score.
It was credit to Mowbray as well at half-time because, as you say, when Gooch went down, first of all, in the first half, Bailey Wright was stripped to come on and replace him and keep that shape, wasn't he? So for him to, yes, the substitution was forced, but to bring Ahmad on and change the formation, and, Dan Neil was pretty much alone in midfield, holding the centre of midfield, and Ahmad was sort of here, there and everywhere, wasn't he?
It was funny watching Danny Bart as well. He was sort of the only defender at a lot of points in that second half. It reminds us a bit of Man City the other week. I was watching them against Copenhagen and they just had one centre half and the rest of the team just played in the opposition. It was a bit like that. At times I was looking, I was like, we are leaving Bart here on his own quite a lot, but it did work.
And it was interesting as well, wasn't it? Because we had Elise on the left-hand side playing wing-back in the first half and Cirkin was playing the left side of the central of defence. And he switched them as well. So Cirkin went to full-back. Elise went alongside Bart. And I thought Elise was class at centre-half. His pace is there, his strength's there. He's got good positional play. Like, he's going to be a star. So it was really nice to see him in his proper position for 45 minutes. I think he did really well. And Cirkin showed a bit of attacking flair that we didn't see that often from him last season playing left-back. He was a very sort of steady defensive full-back for us last year, wasn't he? But he showed really good ability going forward, which you kind of wonder, well, was it just tactics last year that we didn't see that? And he has got that in his locker, because if he has, that could be a huge asset for us in the coming weeks.
Yeah. I mean, just on Elise, Gav, I mean, when he joined us, I remember there was quite a few West Ham fans who were quite unhappy about that, saying, why have we let this guy go? He's a really good prospect, etc., etc. He has been just unbelievable for us in recent weeks. I mean, in defence, he's just an absolute brick wall. But what I loved about Elise yesterday was that his personality, the way he kind of strode through that game yesterday, head up, shoulders back, dominating his defensive duties. He is fantastic, and he's going to be a really good signing for us. And again, proof that again that this model of bringing in the young players, not necessarily particularly heralded young players. He was quite unknown, I suppose, when he brought in. But what a job he's done for us. And Cirkin yesterday, immense, really, really good. And it's so good to see him playing, with his head up and looking positive as well. Because if you remember last season, there were times when he looked a little bit lost, particularly through that kind of December, January, February spell when his form seemed to dip. He looks to be absolutely fantastic now. So yeah, we've got some really good defensive options. Yeah,
it was in. We've obviously highlighted a lot of the defence there. And it was interesting to see how Wigan changed things up, because they obviously realised they were getting nowhere. I think it was Broadhead down the right-hand side got nothing off Cirkin. He was out. Cirkin and Elise, he couldn't get... Broadhead ended up coming off. And then what Wigan did was they sort of decided to just bring on a load of big strikers. And then Elise and Bart, in particular, handled them effortlessly. I mean, Elise, you can hardly believe that he has only played about 9 or 10 senior games of football.
Yeah.
A lot of players have natural ability. A lot of young players who've dropped through the system and end up playing in non-league football have lots of natural ability. It's the difference sometimes is how quickly do they pick up everything else. And he looks like he's been playing for years. He looks like he's already played 200 games. That's where with him I'm like, he's a little bit special, this kid. Like he's got something. He's got something different. Yeah, I mean that big tackle at the end of the game where he just, I can't remember who it was now.
I think it was,
but he absolutely levelled someone on the left hand side of the pitch.
He came at him at full tilt, and I'm thinking, if you mistime this by a fraction of a second, you're in the book or you're off. And he absolutely nailed it. It was just absolutely timed it perfectly. The ball went flying out over the touchline, and everybody rose up.
Well, that's what we needed,
because it was a thunderous effort at that particular moment, and it just summed up his game for me.
That's what we needed at that point as well, because Wigan were just starting to like pile a bit of pressure on in them last few minutes, and I think the crowd needed that. Just somebody to go through them and smack the ball into the crowd, I mean, it's been said a lot down the years that we celebrate a tackle as much as a goal up here, but that was what it was like. You could see him herring across. You could see him, he was like, come on then. And he just went bang, put the ball in the stand. Whole crowd went mental. And I mean, he's loving it, and obviously he's loving playing in this team. And it's
if we can keep him and Ballard, Like, the two of them could be a bloody cracking centre-half partnership, couldn't they?
That whole sort of back five, even like, we could go through every player, and I guess we will before the end, but like from Patterson to the whole defence really that played in the second half were outstanding really. And Wigan's tactic was to bring on a load of big lads, and to be fair, that's worked against us because we're not a big team, but we just seem to handle it. I mean, Magennis came on for them, and Elise just tossed him around, and he's like 6'4". He's like a brick shithouse. And he was trying to like back into Elise and send him, and Elise is just a better footballer than him, and he knew how to handle him. And Bart was the same alongside him. Bart didn't really look troubled, so that was important in that second half. We knew that if we were going to get a goal, Wigan were going to change the way they played, because they played up till that first goal. Really, they just wasted time, and it was funny after the first goal, wasn't it, Martin? How that all stopped, the taking the time on everything, the going down feigning injury and drying the ball with a towel every time it went out for a throw-in, and all these little things that they'd obviously decided that was the way they were going to frustrate Sunderland. It all went out the window as soon as we scored, and that's the make of I guess how a team adjusts during the game is to me is a make of a good team. Like Sunderland, we were getting beat. You just said it yourself. Mowbray went, I'm going to bring an attacker on. I'm going to change the shape. We're going to go for it. Wigan's manager's mindset was obviously very negative. We're going to try and get a point. We're going to try and frustrate them. If we do win, it'll be through nicking a goal or two at various points in the game. When that works, great. When that works, brilliant. Sunderland have dominated the game, but we've scored a goal at the end of the half. If we can frustrate them for the rest of the second half, that's a good 3 points. But when we get a goal back, them tactics go out the window. What do? It doesn't work, does it? And we saw how frustrated Wigan were. I was gutted for Nathan Broadhead in a way to watch him playing for a team like that, because if he was in our team yesterday, he'd have got a hatful. Instead, he was like feeding off long balls. He came off after an hour. It was just, they to me, Wigan they got what they deserved in the end, to be honest.
No, they did. As I said earlier, you can see why they've got results away from home, because if they can play like that and frustrate teams, waste time, they've got some goal scorers up front. They can nick some goals, can't they? But completely agree with you about Broadhead. Like, it's just a waste, isn't it? A complete waste of him, his talent, his time. Like, he should have been back here with us, and he'd have played the last 10 games up front, and he probably would have had 5, 6, 7 goals, and he'd be going to the World Cup. But made the wrong decision in August, and he'll likely be staying at home in Wales come November.
Yeah, well, not going to dwell on it too much. I just think, Broadhead to me, Phil, it's just such a missed opportunity that
it's the wrong team.
Martin just said, total wrong team.
Their style at all. He just does not fit Wigan at all. And
when you look at his age, he's 24. He's coming to 25 in about 6 months.
Yeah.
This Wales team, we're going off track a little bit here, but this Wales team with Bale leading the charge, I'd be surprised if they qualify for the next World Cup. By that point, he'll be nearly 30.
Yeah.
And you look and you think this was his best opportunity to play the World Cup, play for his country, and they passed that up because they didn't fancy it. And what baffles me is that he went to Wigan because he thought he couldn't get in ahead of Stewart and Sims at the time. I think it was after that Bristol City game, wasn't it, where they both scored.
Yeah.
But then you look at Wigan, they've got about 7 strikers. And I'm just like, I'm going, well, you would have been scoring for fun in this team for us.
If you look at him, right, you see, coming up at 25, he's played around 50 games professionally. Coming up 25, so he's been playing for 7 years, and he's not clocking up 10 games a season. And you compare that to Dennis Cirkin, who's what, 21, 20? So Dennis Cirkin's 20, I'm just having a look here. And that was his 50th game yesterday. So already, he's just, it's a frustrating one. It's like an outfield version of Steve Harper, isn't it? Like, he's just sat around the Premier League club hoping he'll get a chance one day, being promised who knows what, being terribly advised, it seems, by his choice to go to Wigan. And like, he should have left Everton 3 years ago and clocked up some games, and it's just nuts.
I don't want to denigrate what Broadhead's decision, because obviously he made that decision for his own reasons, and I think it's fair enough that you respect that. But as you said, Gav, if he'd have been playing in this team with the likes of Pritchard feeding him, come on, I mean, he would have been banging him in for fun, as you said. It would have been he would have been easily in the shop window for the Wales World Cup squad. So it is a peculiar one, and I just wonder whether or not it's a comfort zone thing for him. Obviously, playing in Wigan, it's not far from North Wales, it's not far from Liverpool, it's kind of in his area, if you like. Maybe that factored into his decision. We'll probably never know, but it is a shame because I would have had him back here in a heartbeat, personally.
It's just such, and that's the overriding thing. I just think it's such a missed opportunity for us to watch a player like that develop and get better and better in the team that we've got. And I think if he'd come here, he could have been a 20-goal-a-season striker for us for the next few seasons.
Probably could have been.
And it's I love watching him play. I think he's such a good player. He's got a beautiful touch. He glides across the field. He can score. He's such a good player. And for him to see him yesterday having balls whacked up towards his head and over the top, he was just like a boy lost yesterday.
Yeah. Never mind. We can't cry too much for Nathan Broadhead. We did all right. Second goal came with about 15, 16 minutes from the end. I can't remember now. But to that point, we'd been great in the second half. Phil, hadn't we? We'd done really well. But it was a bit of quick thinking and also some bad officiating. Again, like I say, we'll come on to the ref. He deserves his own segment on this show. But it's funny watching the goal back. I didn't realise it at the time. But Roberts is fouled. The free kick is taken nowhere near where the foul is. Yeah, I think it's 09, gives it to Pritchard. Pritchard plays a lovely early ball in the box. I think there's only Cirkin there, but there's nobody was going to stop him from getting his head on it. He dove at it like a missile and scored a great diving header, and something we haven't seen enough from him. He doesn't really get into the opposition box that often, but certainly he's obviously realised that his place in the side's under threat and he needs to make an impression. Needs to add to his game, needs to do more going forward, and he certainly did that with that goal, didn't he? It was a good all-round goal, to be honest. Nice to see some quick thinking from a set piece, and nice to see him get on the score sheet for the first time.
Without a doubt. I mean, it was real kind of in where it hurts stuff from Cirkin, to dive in there, with the goalkeeper right in your face and, kind of going in there and taking a risk. But it was fantastic, and and he deserved it, Gav, as well. I think it was a performance yesterday from Cirkin that really merited that goal. And again, it just showed him taking responsibility and saying, okay, look, I'm going to make the gamble. I'm going to make the run. I'm going to go in where it hurts. As long as I get the ball in the back of the net, I'll take, if I get clobbered on the way through, that's fine. I'll take that,
It's funny, obviously, we do the on this day pieces for the website. I did one last week, and there was a game from 72, I think, and there was a couple of diving headers scored in it. And as a kid, I remember diving headers were pretty common, and you used to see players thundering through. I remember Billy Whitehurst scoring a cracking diving header at home in the Fulwell end against Leeds in about 1989. He seemed to come in like an excellent missile from the edge of the box and just go through everybody to get the ball in the back of the net. And you rarely see diving headers these days. Now, I don't know what it is, whether it's people aren't prepared to get stuck in their head, or there's a bit more concern about stuff like that. But Cirkin showed such great commitment to get there. There was absolutely nothing was going to stop him. And in his interview after the game, he'd made the point that a few minutes before, Pritchard had put the ball over and he hadn't anticipated it, and the ball had just sort of flashed across the face of the goal. And Cirkin had said to Pritchard, if you put the ball in there again, I promise you I'll get to it. And you could just see that commitment where the ball had come in. Cirkin was already looking for it. Pritchard was already looking for Cirkin. And Cirkin wasn't going to let anything get in the way of him getting his head in that ball, was he? I just love seeing that sort of commitment from players. And his first goal for the club, 50th game for the club, great celebration. It was a really good moment.
Yeah, it was. We'll talk about the ref then. Jesus wept. It wasn't just for us. It was both teams, as I've just pointed out. I mean, he allowed the free kick to be taken for our second goal miles from where the actual foul was, but that was just one of many things that he did during the game, really. I mean, you could go through, couldn't you, and talk about them all in depth, I guess.
We might need a separate podcast.
The other one that separate podcast. The other one which could have went out against us was the tackle from Embleton on, I think it was Wyke, wasn't it, in the first half, which was dangerous. I've seen people walk for tackles like that, and the ref let that go. But he done nothing to deter Wigan really from wasting time up until we got that first goal. It was just constant. There was no warnings. There was, to me, I'm saying this like I'm an expert, but I used to be a qualified referee, and if I saw a player wasting time right at the start of a game, which to be honest didn't really happen that often in sort of Saturday, Sunday football, but if that would happen, I would nip it in the bud early. I would say, right, come on, I can see what you're trying to do. nip it in the bud. If they don't nip it in the bud, then I would be giving out yellow cards for it straight away. I'd be showing them my authority. I'd be saying, come on, we can't have a game flowing like this. You can't be wasting time like you are. Which is all. I mean, if he had it in his head he wasn't going to do that, fair enough. But then he books Patterson for time wasting when he didn't waste time. And I'm like, is this... I couldn't believe it.
It was a really strange performance, I think, from him, wasn't it? Because, as you say, the Embleton tackle, I don't think that's a 100% red card, but I think 6 or 7 times out of 10, that's a red, so we'll probably go away with it there. I thought Curtis Tilt, I think he'd already been booked for a foul on Roberts, and then he fouled Roberts again, and the referee let play go on. And I think if he brought it back for a free kick there, he would have got a second yellow. Tilt, in the second half, probably took about 60 or 70 seconds to take a throw in. And again, he could have... That was when it was 1-1 or 1-0 to them. And he could have easily been shown the yellow card then. I think Patterson got booked for probably taking the quickest goal kick of the whole afternoon. If you look at the amount of time the away keeper was taken, if you look at the amount of time Max Power spent drying the bloody ball, and whoever didn't seal those towels in the first half, we need to train the ball boys better because they should have been snatched away from them. But it was just like, it was so much time that they were wasting. Their keeper went down for cramp, and I'm not sure how he got cramp because he didn't move a great deal. Like, it was just nuts, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was obvious what was happening, and he done nothing about it. And then when he did do something about it, it wasn't time wasting. It was our player. It's baffling. I mean, he gave, not necessarily him, I guess his linesman gave the offside for that Roberts goal, which looked perfectly fine to me.
I guess too tight to call.
Along the line, but
it was too tight to call. And if the whole thing is you give the benefit of the doubt to the attacker, then you can't raise your flag there.
It was just ridiculous refereeing yesterday, from start to finish. And I know we've got a roundtable out at the moment on the website regarding the refereeing. I think Rich has actually said something in there about the standard of refereeing around the country, plummeting, frankly. And something needs to be done, Gav, because it is week in, week out, we're seeing these appalling performances by referees. There's no consistency. They're putting themselves at the centre of attention when they should be just getting on with their jobs quietly. And it's just not good enough, and it really has to be looked at as far as I'm concerned. Yeah,
there was also numerous occasions where we were getting fouled. It probably happened 4 or 5 times where we were fouled, and he blew his whistle immediately instead of letting play on.
Yeah,
we saw the other side that the other week when Embleton scored, where the referee blew up before allowing us to play on, and we scored. It happened loads of times in this game again, where yes, we were fouled, but we actually had the advantage. We were in decent positions down there, and to me, like, if you're the team that's being fouled and you've still managed to work the ball wide, or you've managed to get into a dangerous area, the referee has to let that play on because you haven't done anything wrong. He was bringing it back and giving us free kicks, blowing his whistle straight away, no advantage played. And then the opposite side of it was, I was watching, it was mainly when Wigan were winning fouls, he was waiting like 4 or 5 seconds to blow the whistle. There was just no consistency between the two sort of teams when it came to his decision making. And he booked Pritchard.
Oh, that was just ridiculous.
Nout, and it's a yellow card he shouldn't have got. It was nothing. It was an absolute nothing challenge.
Like, I'm just looking at the stats from yesterday. He gave 15 fouls against Wigan, and there was 2 yellow cards, and 7 fouls against us and 3 yellow cards. So there was a bit of a discrepancy in terms of the balance there. But as Phil said, this isn't an isolated performance, is it? Like, we're seeing every week the standard of refereeing in the Championship is, arguably worse than it was in League One, and you just struggle to believe that would be a possibility, would you, last season? And I don't know what it is. Like, is it, referees are relying on VAR too much in the Premier League, so they think that's how it is, but that doesn't impact how you let play go on or blow up for a foul, or the speed that you do that, like, or how you punish time wasting. And it's, I know a number of managers have commented about it all season, haven't they? It's impacting the quality of the game. We've seen at the stadium, right? It was it the Preston game, wasn't it, where the ball was actually in play for 40 odd minutes throughout the whole 90. And something's the Referees Association has to obviously take the lead on it, haven't they? Because it's not good for the game as a whole. It's not about us getting a free kick here or there. It's about the quality of football across the board, really, and it's not conducive to it.
No. The worrying thing is that Keith Stroud is a Premier League referee. That was a Premier League referee we had yesterday, and he was dreadful. I mean, Mowbray it's the first time I've ever heard him mention referees, and even he said after the game, he basically said what I said. It was obvious early in the game what was going on, and he said we could have done with a bit of help from the officials to stop the player being slowed down, and we got no protection in that regard. It's not just about protecting the players in terms of fouls and tackles and stuff. It's actually protecting the integrity of the game. Like, to me, it needs to be a fair occasion. If this teams there's a bit of the dark arts going on, then fair enough. It happens in every game, but it was excessive, and he done nothing about it. And you're right, Martin. I'm worried. I'm actually worried that. I mean, this has been every week. Like, how many? This could cost us points. The amount of, particularly at the Stadium of Light, refs are coming there, and it's like a big occasion for them or something. And I don't know what it is. I can't explain it. I can't put my finger on it. We were trying to talk about it after the game of coming away from the stadium. My brother-in-law was talking about it with us, and he was like, are they just wanting their moment in the spotlight or something? Like, I don't get it.
It's bizarre. What's really frustrating is, a lot of calls in refereeing are judgment calls, aren't there? The offside yesterday was a judgment call. Fouls, generally judgment calls. Time wasting is one of the few things that are really factual in terms of how much time is he taking to take that goal kick, to take that throw in. And, there should be some sort of limit, and I'm sure there is unofficially a limit that you've got. You've got 20 seconds to take a throw in. You've got 20 seconds, however long it is, once you've got set up. There must be something that they work to judge it, because otherwise, how on earth can you judge it with any clarity? So the fact that you've got these situations that should be relatively factual calls, and there's such inconsistency to it, and it's the sort of stuff that does ruin games to watch. And you not only compromising the integrity of the game, but you're compromising the entertainment, the enjoyment, the spectacle, and that's got whole other ramifications longer term if they don't actually sort it out. So something desperately needs to be done. I think it's not only us talking about it; it's a common thing, as we said. It's a common thing throughout the Championship this season, and it's got to come to a head soon. Yeah,
but we can breathe, Phil, can't we? We got the win. The ref didn't cost us the 3 points. We saw the rest of the game out, and it's like I said at the start of the game. I thought there was a lot hinging on this because just the mood of the fan base. If we had lost, especially with Wyke scoring that goal, if it had finished 1-0, God no, we'd have been sat here really depressed right now. But the lads done what they did quite often last season. They came from behind, they got a late goal, they didn't give up, and now we can look forward. We've had a naff run of results, but there's no sugarcoating it. We haven't been getting battered, but we've struggled to pick up wins. Last weekend was probably the worst performance of the season. We had to respond. We did, and when you look at the fixtures we've coming up, we really needed to win this one, I think, regardless of the fact Wigan, we haven't mentioned it, Wigan, by the way, had the best away form of any team in the Championship up until the point they played us. So it was never going to be simple, but we had to win this one, I think, and we did. And we've got a couple of hard games coming up. We've got Blackburn on Tuesday, but it just gives Mowbray and the players a bit of breathing space, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And I think that obviously, with recent results and performances being the way they have, it was our first real wobble, as we said earlier on in the podcast. It was our first real spell since getting promoted to the Championship where maybe questions were starting to be asked just a little bit. I'm not saying that people were turning or anything like that, because certainly I thought the fans yesterday were backing the team, certainly where I was sitting, backing the team throughout the game, which was excellent. But yesterday was the first time since we've been promoted at the Stadium Light where the players I felt were under a little bit of real pressure. Obviously, if you look at the games against, say, for the likes of Norwich, for example, where they're effectively a Premier League team, you can give them a bit of leeway, etc., etc. But yesterday was, I think, the kind of game where we really wanted the players to deliver. And they did, and they showed that resilience that's kind of characterised this team for a long time now, Gav. This team doesn't fold, they don't crumble. And I have to say, if you look at the difference between the team now and the team that, stumbled their way through the Championship in 27-18 under Grayson and Coleman, it's night and day. The team spirit's much stronger. Everybody's fighting for each other. There's unity. Everybody's on side. So, yeah, that's going to set them in really good stead. But it was a big win. And I think, again, we're in a much better position in the league now. Confidence will be high going into Tuesday and then against Burnley on Saturday. And, yeah, I think we've ridden that storm, if you like, and we've come out the other side. So, hopefully we can kick on again now.
It's funny how you kind of perceive the run that we've had, isn't it? Because obviously the 2 home games that we had that we didn't score, and obviously we've got those obvious problems up front with Stewart and Sims being out. So you kind of go, that's 2 points dropped in both those games. But, Preston, after they played us, Preston went away to Norwich and won. After we played Blackpool, Blackpool beat Watford, and then they had a cracking game against Sheffield United on Saturday, a pretty eventful game that they picked up a point away at Sheffield United. So, that point at home at Preston, point at home against Blackpool, aren't the worst results at all in the world. But as you say, to get a win against Wigan, to take us into this next run of games before the World Cup, away at Blackburn on Tuesday, at home to Burnley on Saturday, which is going to be a really big test for us. It's really good, and it'll give the lads confidence, gives us confidence to go into those two games off the back of picking 3 points up. And as you say, if we'd come away from Saturday's game losing 1-0 to a Charlie Wyke goal, the mood going into those two fixtures is vastly different to how it is now, isn't it?
Well, we'll wrap things up there. We've had a good chat today. Thankfully, the referee didn't spoil things. We enjoyed watching Sunderland win another game in the Championship, up to 9th in the table. Gives us a good platform to kick on from here, as we've said, and Blackburn on Tuesday is the next game. So make sure you catch rokerreport.sbnation.com. All our social media feeds, we've been ramping it up across the board there, so there's plenty of content for you leading into that game. Just leaves me to say thank you very much, Phil.
Thanks, Gav.
Appreciate it. And cheers, Martin, for joining us.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers. And thanks to the listeners for joining us also. We'll be back probably after Blackburn. We'll catch you later.